Welcome to Brainstorium. I'm Anna Tizard, award-winning dream punk and deeply weird fantasy author. And yes, that's me and my fiction that's deeply weird. Explore and imagine with me the most unexpected story ideas using the surrealist word game of Exquisite Corpse. Find out more and join in at annatizard.com. This is a storytelling challenge unlike anything you've tried before. Hello, imaginative people. I'm Anna Tizard, and this is episode 100 of Brainstorium. I can't believe it. It's a bit surreal. But then that's highly appropriate, I guess, since I'm a part-time surrealist using surrealist methods to conjure up new ideas and stories. Looking back over the show so far, the Exquisite Corpse games have generated 294 unique sentences, which I expect have never been uttered before, because they're too strange, right? And which have either made me laugh, hopefully made you laugh too, or inspired me and you, or possibly both. But if you consider that each entire sentence is a writing prompt in its own right, and you also have the two describing word-noun word combinations per exquisite corpse, which also work on their own, that brings the total of writing prompts generated on this show to 882. And of course, that's not even counting the new writing prompts that I'll generate today using your words and perhaps a collective imaginative effort. I have also had the pleasure and honour of reading out countless stories and poems on the show from my wonderful listeners. So thank you so much to those who sent in stories along the way. I would read out your names, but that would take a really long time. You're all so talented, and I want to keep encouraging you as much as I can. Not just with the writing prompts and the tips and techniques that I sometimes bring to the show, but with some publishing opportunities, which I'm going to start sharing again. I did this a little while ago, and I'm bringing it back, so keep listening. To celebrate this milestone 100th episode, I received some wonderful feedback from regular listeners that I'm going to share with you now. Alessandro Bozzo, who basically told me to start a podcast in the first place, thank you Alex, and often sends stories and words for the socks, said, "I love your narration. It makes what I submit sound so much better, haha. The story and poem requests are a great challenge. It keeps my imagination healthy. If time is short, just submit a few words for the socks, which helps grow my vocabulary." He also said, "For me, the podcast is a fantastic catalyst to ignite the imagination, pulling the story ideas out of us." I like this imagery. Thank you, Alex. Nick Vrakar, whose name you'll definitely recognise as a regular contributor of stories to the show, said, "Brainstorium has been a lot of fun. Part of it is the challenge of bringing sense to nonsense. But a large part is the exercise in creativity that provides a springboard into ideas that may not exist if not for the specific word combinations that I wouldn't consider otherwise." Thank you, Nick. And I'm glad the game and the brainstorms are generating that freshness and uniqueness that can be difficult to find elsewhere. Mariah, another long-term listener who's contributed stories and a lot of words for the socks, said, "I returned to writing because you inspired me and you keep inspiring me and others." Well, that's just wonderful. I mean, that is the true purpose of Brainstorium. So thank you, Mariah, and keep going. Paul Monteith, who is Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky, said, "Thank you for the time and effort you put into making the podcast. I look forward to each broadcast and to a creative 2026. This was January when Paul wrote to me. He also said he is developing The Expanding Lantern Café, which is a short story you can hear on episode 99 based on the prompt The Expansive Lantern, changing various details and seeing where the story will take him. Do keep us updated, Paul, and thanks for your kind words." Paul Macmillan, who is Bookmarks Love and Lore on X, said, "I've been thinking about how your prompts work like little sparks. You throw out this single idea and somehow every writer runs in a completely different direction with it. It's wild how the same seed grows into a dozen different stories, voices, and moods. That says a lot about the way you guide the creative process. You open a door and let us figure out what world waits on the other side. Thank you for giving writers that space and for sharing these stories on your podcast. Hearing you read them makes the whole thing feel more real and reminds us that the work matters. Your prompts don't just inspire stories, they inspire confidence, curiosity, and a reason to sit down and write again tomorrow." Wow, I think I'm going to have to print this and stick this on my fridge door. There's so much here that's personally important to me. Inspiring writers, making it feel real and exciting and immediate. Maybe this is the kind of thing, this kind of interaction of reading out people's stories that helps keep that fire going. When so many traditional channels to publishing may seem closed to us, I'm just glad I can help open that door, as you so eloquently put it. Thank you, Paul. Now, actually, that draws me quite neatly into something that I'm going to talk a little bit about before we move on to stories and brainstorming. Looking at where we are as indies or just small-time writers within the bigger picture. Step back for a moment. Lately, I've come across quite a few articles that report a downturn in book sales overall, in reading in general, and in deals signed with traditional publishers. Well, we all know that a big proportion of traditional publishing these days is carried financially by celebrity books. So sometimes I think it's not even worth thinking about all of that. But looking at these doom and gloom figures, for one thing, I understand that any books sold directly from author to reader, and while I'm not doing that yet, I don't have an online shop or anything yet, all those direct sales, which are increasing all the time, are invisible. They're not captured by these statistics. They can't be. That's one way in which, financially and otherwise, indie author stats fall outside of that fixed, traditional-centric picture. But there's also more and more dynamics to our creative lives as writers these days, and our ability to connect with others, especially online. Do these statistics reflect other forms of engagement between readers and writers, or the amount of activity going on in the general art and craft of writing? How could they? We have more mediums than ever through social media, podcasts, videos, and so on to share our work and to support each other. Likewise, it's so easy to worry about the sheer volume of people publishing books and getting lost in that crowd, with it being so easy these days to click a few buttons to self-publish. But then, doesn't this wealth of interest demonstrate a huge energy, a passion for literature that goes beyond just book sales through established, recognised bookshops? Writers are usually voracious readers too. So much of being indie, or just small or starting out, is about finding your part in this massive community. Yes, most of it is online, but that's part of what makes it potentially infinite. Rather than be overwhelmed by it or threatened by the numbers, part of why the indie scene is so big and flourishing is our ability to connect in all these ways, to learn and to appreciate each other, bolster each other up, be part of something. We may write alone, but writing doesn't have to be lonely anymore. Maybe indie publishing, and we as the little guys, are the ones who will ultimately save literacy and save books, and the passion for the written and spoken word, for stories and for wonder. And you know what? If they say most people don't have enough time or they have too short an attention span to read an entire book, well then, the time is ripe for the short story revolution. Speaking of communities and writers supporting each other, you may be interested to know that I'm going to be part of a discussion panel for the Spotlight Indie Big Weekend, an online event full of interviews and discussions by writers for writers, which is running from the 20th to the 22nd of February 2026, so coming up shortly. The panel I'm in includes fantasy and speculative fiction authors J.E. Hannaford, Alethea Lyons, and Phil Parker, and we'll be discussing the theme of writing better beginnings. We'll be sharing our experiences and tips and tricks on how to begin a short story or novel well, whether there's any real difference in our approaches to one form versus the other, how to avoid common pitfalls, and so on. I'm looking forward to hearing what these other authors have to say on this topic. I find you can never predict what you might learn from other writers. You can find the Spotlight Indie podcast on YouTube if you just type Spotlight Indie, but I will include a link in the show notes. Our panel on writing better beginnings will be, funnily enough, at the beginning of the event, scheduled for 1 p.m. UK time on Friday the 20th of February. If you're on EST, I believe this will be 8 a.m. But of course, you don't have to watch it live. You can just catch up on the video after the event at any time and not necessarily in your pyjamas. So, in the last show, I asked if you could come up with a story based on, well, various extremely odd word combinations that came out of the Socks of Destiny in episode 99. Paul Monteith tackled the hungry handkerchief, trigger warning, slight grossness coming, and some very ticklish humour. When Victorian travellers heard "your Irish linens or your life," ladies of refinement and men of position clutched their handkerchiefs. A scourge throughout England, the linen lifters fenced the stolen mucus moppers to a scientist living in Ingolstadt, Germany. "Do we have enough linens to create something unholy, Dr. Frankenchief?" the doctor's assistant asked. "Yes, Igor. We have ample Irish linens to create stacks of animated handkerchiefs that will blow and wipe your runny nose for you." The doctor threw back his head and laughed manically. "Launder the prep and the linens for the operating table." Thunder punched the air while lightning cut jagged lines. Igor worked quickly to run a cable from the lightning rod to the Tesla coils. Wires ran from the coils to electrodes attached to the linen squares. "We only need one strike," Frankerchief said. When lightning struck the rod, the coils flashed and sparked as they converted the energy into an electrical current that zapped the squares. The handkerchiefs twitched and rustled. The electrical discharge had burned the insides of Igor's nose. Life, Igor! The doctor shouted. He raised his hands, his curled fingers gripping the air. Live, you unholy apparel accessory! In a voice as crisp as fresh milled linen, a handkerchief said, Feed me the mucus. Igor's irritated nose, still burning, sneezed. The chanting, hungry handkerchiefs set upon him, weaseling their way into his nasal passages and worming down his throat, and they devoured Igor from the inside out. Most unfortunate, the doctor said. Oh gosh, this is like a cartoon come to life and then some. Spectacular. Thank you, Paul. You can find Paul Monteith on Blue Sky as Quantum Fairy, and I recommend you do as soon as possible. Now it is time to reach into the inanimate and as yet unconscious apparel accessories, which may nonetheless spark new life into our imaginations. Bring forth the socks of destiny. That's right, Exquisite Corpse mixes your words and phrases into a very weird sentence that goes describing word noun, action, describing word noun. I'll play 3 rounds as usual to create 3 extremely strange sentences. Sentences that you've probably never heard before. They've probably never been spoken before in the history of humanity. Because that's how I roll. So it is with a little trepidation that I reach into the first describing word sock. This is from Paul Thomas. Horrific. Okay, so let's see what noun can be attached to horrific. This is from Alessandro Bozzo. Badger. A horrific badger. Okay, well, let's just see where it takes us. Let's grab an action. This is also from Alessandro Bozzo. If I can just unfold it. Investigated the crime scene with. Okay, so we have a crime scene. We have no idea what kind of crime has been committed, but a horrific badger is investigating it. With, this is from Sophie de Soles. Exhausted. Is this an exhausted detective of some kind? Let's see. Final word is from Paul Monteith, also known as Quantum Fairy on Blue Sky. Grasshopper mouse. Ooh, it's not the kind of thing you'd expect to be exhausted. I did look this up. I was a bit unsure, and I've scribbled tiny little notes around the piece of paper to remind myself. So this is a nocturnal carnivorous rodent. It hunts insects and, rather unusually, scorpions, being immune to their venom. They also hunt other mice, and they howl. I think they're rather odd for sort of throwing back their heads and howling like tiny little fluffy werewolves in the middle of the night. So all together. Okay, we've got to think of some, we've got to think metaphorically, okay? Try and see beyond the literal here, because the horrific badger investigated the crime scene with the exhausted grasshopper mouse. Seems like we have our work cut out for us here. My first instinct is to imagine a murder that's occurred at a fancy dress party. I always seem to reach for fancy dress when I don't know, when there's too many animals involved and it's kind of outlandish. And And for murder mystery fans, actually, that provides the opportunity for mistaken identity. You'll recognise this as a trope. The badger is horrific because the person who's dressed as a badger is covered in blood. But they're a police officer. And the exhausted person who's dressed up as a grasshopper mouse is the detective. They're partners. And they like dressing up as animals in their spare time. But then that raises the question, who on earth would commit a violent crime like this right under their noses and whiskers? Could it have something to do with animal rights? An extremist activist wants to make a point by murdering someone who's somehow involved in animal cruelty at a party where everyone is dressed up as animals. Is that a bit on the nose? But then they're emotional about it. They really want to make a point. Maybe it's a charity event. Maybe these two, the police officer and the detective, maybe they're not that interested in dressing up as animals. They've just been kind of dragged into this thing without realising what is going to unfold that night. I wonder if, as part of the plan, this activist wants to point the blame, create a setup to make it look like someone who is involved in animal cruelty is the guilty one, unless the badger is, because it's a horrific badger, the person dressed up as a badger is the one who looks guilty, being covered in blood. That's the person they're trying to point the finger at. Okay. I mean, this is... I don't really know. I don't really write... Well, I've never written, a murder mystery, but hey, the idea's out there. Let's move on swiftly to our next exquisite corpse. First word is again from Paul Thomas. Reversed. That's an interesting adjective. Reversed. Let's just see what we've got next. This is from Paul Monteith, Quantum Fairy. Curette. Now, I had to look this one up. I've not heard of a curette. It is a small surgical instrument used to remove material from inside you with a scraping action. Oh, yikes, is my reaction to that. So a reversed curette, would that mean putting material back inside you? Ugh. Double yikes. Right, okay, so I think we just have to keep going and pull out an action. Oh, this is also from Paul Monteith. Howled at. Oh, I'm getting a vision again of that grasshopper mouse, because that's a little howler. This is getting very strange. Next word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Inquisitive. Okay, we have some curiosity thrown in, but what or who will be inquisitive? Final word. If I can just disentangle these from my hand, because I have a whole bunch of them. This is from Paul Thomas. Oh, headstone. Oh, an inquisitive headstone. Gosh, this is just getting weirder and weirder. The reversed curette howled at the inquisitive headstone. Well, I don't know about you, but I definitely need green tea before I even begin to venture down this one. Right. Okay. So once again, the reversed curette howled at the inquisitive headstone. It's like every step is that bit more bizarre. An inquisitive headstone, though, that is a very weird phrase. So not the undead, but the headstone of a grave appears to be conscious and curious, wanting to understand something that's going on or wanting to see it. Because someone is, and this is kind of gross, putting material back into someone or something, maybe, using this scraping device that's reversed, secreting something into the grave. I have this odd image of someone injecting the ground with some kind of substance that will raise the dead or keep the dead buried if there's a sign or a suspicion of a ghost there. But would it be a magical substance, or could it be a thing from the dead person's past? It would have to be pretty tiny if you could inject it. But I suppose they would be perhaps reuniting them with something that it's only right that they should be buried with. But then what? I can't help but wonder if whatever disturbance has occurred to make this grave injector suspicious or worried about a restless spirit has actually been caused by the inquisitive headstone. For there's more awareness, other things are stirring in this particular graveyard that you wouldn't expect. Curious. Feels like it could be the beginning of something. Not quite sure what, but I'm just going to move on to number 3. There will be more brainstorms later using the dice, as regular listeners will know. Next word is from Sophie de Soles. Chatty. Okay, so who was chatty? Next word is from Anonymous. Goblin. A chatty goblin. Let's have an action to pull this together. Ooh, again, this is from Anonymous. Harvested mushrooms with. Oh, actually, that works. I can see that. A chatty goblin in the forest harvesting mushrooms. I get the feeling that maybe goblins would know the difference between the poisonous ones and the ones that are okay to eat. It tends to be very difficult for humans, so I've heard. Next word is from Paul Thomas. Mirrored. Oh, I like that. Oh, but we've had reversed and now we have mirrored. What is going on here? Final word is from Alessandro Bozzo. Ifrit. Ooh, so it's another weird creature. So an Ifrit is a malevolent and cunning demon or jinn. And the internet says it's often depicted as a winged creature of smoke. Smoke and mirrors, people. That's what we've got going on here. So the chatty goblin harvested mushrooms with the mirrored Ifrit. With chatty, you might say someone's chatty to kind of hint that they're saying too much, they're giving away something, secrets, when they shouldn't be. Is this goblin saying too much, explaining too much as he shows this Ifrit around the mossy and dank forest floor to demonstrate where to find mushrooms? Are there magical secrets around this that he shouldn't be saying? Mirrored Ifrit, that is such a fascinating word combination. What could this being want? But with mirrored, I mean, you don't have to necessarily take it literally. I feel like there's at least going to be some kind of deception around this character, trickery. And is the Ifrit being open about the fact that they're looking for poisonous mushrooms? Are they pretending to be innocent and interested in edible mushrooms and just being able to tell the difference between the ones that are safe to eat and the ones that aren't? And who are they plotting to murder? So the chatty goblin harvested mushrooms with the mirrored Ifrit. Often in fantasy, mirrors have magical powers, so we could use that. In fact, I do have a little theme running through Weird Creatures where mirrors come up a few times, pointing to specific magic or strange things that can happen as a result of magic performed on mirrors. So here, does the mirror provide, or the mirroredness, does it provide a special way of seeing, or of deception, of spying on other people, seeing into the self, into parts of yourself which you can hide from others? Again, that feels like a disguise to do with deception. Or is it a portal, as in Alice Through the Looking Glass? There's so much you could do with the mirrored Ifrit. I feel like I've just touched the very surface of this. It's I feel like it's giving the inquisitive headstone a run for its money. Oh, but which word combination should I go for? In this part of the show, I roll an 8-sided dice to decide which of 8 categories of interpretation I should try and use to take the story brainstorms deeper. If I roll the dice first, then decide which word combination, that would be cheating, right? Okay, so I'll say that I want to try and deep dive into the mirrored Ifrit. Let's roll the dice. 4. Oh, by the way, you can see the full list of 8 categories I'm using in the show notes. You just have to scroll to the bottom. So 4 is a portal or means of travel. Well, that's one aspect I was talking about with the mirror, like Through the Looking Glass. But what is a mirrored Ifrit in this context? An Ifrit that has stepped out of a mirror or slipped out by accident? Does this Ifrit generally like to travel by mirror? Or is this a new thing for it? It has wings made of smoke, apparently, but has decided it's better, maybe safer, to travel by mirror. Why would that be? Because it's less visible this way? It can sneak into people's rooms and eavesdrop just out of sight. No need for breaking and entering or looking for an open window, which is rarely going to happen in the dead of winter anyway. Who is it spying on and why? Government secrets? Celebrity secrets? Secrets it can sell or use to blackmail people? For Ifrits are cunning and malevolent, we know that much. Maybe this one's getting on in years. It's less steady on its wings, less nimble when it lands on someone's roof. That's why it's learned to travel by mirror. Maybe it's found a magic mirror which links to other mirrors. All other mirrors? It could be. It might be that you slink between all of the mirrors to get to the one you want, which can be risky because anyone might be looking in. Best to do it at night when most people are sleeping and they're not paying attention to the mirror when they're in their bedroom asleep. So it's like a strange corridor full of refracted light. he creeps along, pausing each time he passes a mirror, looks kind of like a window. On his back, he carries a sack full of secrets. He's stealing them to sell. Long gone are his days of treasure hunting. There are other ways to get rich. Humans keep so many secrets to themselves, the type of truths that will only show up in their face when they confront a mirror on their own. At least they think they're on their own. He has to catch them at exactly the right moment, sneak from the side of their vision and pinch their reflection at the very edges with his special pair of tweezers just at the crease of their frown. They'll shriek, jump back, but he'll be gone by the time they catch their breath, staring and staring, unable to confirm what they've just seen. For a day, maybe they'll be jumping at shadows. A week later, they'll be calm again. The moment will have faded like a dream, their glimpse of this wicked, snarling grin in the mirror, until he finds them in a dark alley where he will ask them for payment to keep their secret. I quite like that. And any portal you can spend time in, like an in-between space. Oh yeah, that's my kind of thing. Anyway, do I try for another category, but still on the mirrored ifrit? Will it be a different idea? Or might it be a way to suggest another direction for the same story, like a continuation or a new direction? 7. An invention. I feel like this one comes up quite a bit. I'll probably have to expand the list soon and try and come up with some new stuff. Drop me a line if you have any ideas for this, by the way. So a mirrored ifrit as an invention? This is weird because for something to be invented, there has to be a need for it. A situation where someone says, oh, if only I had a mirrored ifrit, my life would be so much easier. But what if we can think around this in a different way? What if the mirrored ifrit is an unfortunate side effect of an invention? So someone is trying to invent something that involves mirrors, but the magic is so intense and a bit wild that it generates a little extra by accident in the form of a cunning ifrit. For they do say that every light casts a shadow. So if you perform a bit of magic that causes a massive flash of light and something as uncunning as imaginable, like something to do with truth or a truth divining magic, or a magic that holds a light, quite literally maybe, to the truth, then a side effect might be that you get a bit of its opposite. I'm imagining some kind of tunnel of mirrors, like when you hold one mirror up to another and you get repeated reflections within reflections going on and on to infinity. Someone's messing around with that. Is someone trying to reach into infinity, to stretch time, or reach into the past or the future? It's an intriguing idea. I think the way in is, as usual, to ask why. Create a character for this adventure by asking, why do they want to reach back into the past or forward into the future? Because, and I've said it before, the heart of a story beats with the reason why. Develop your character's greatest need and greatest fear, which might of course be two sides of the same issue, but that will give you the core of a story. And I know for a fact, if every one of my listeners had a go at writing a story based on this, each one would be entirely different, not just because of different writing styles and unique ways of thinking, but because every person's decision about the reason why their protagonist wants to reach through time will be different. So never be afraid to try out one of these ideas for yourself in the worry that other people might be doing the same thing. Trust me, they're not. And then, of course, you've got not just the why of why they're trying out this magic, but how they react to this cunning little ifrit that creeps out of the mirror and who is a side effect of this big blast of bright light, this blast of magic. Okay, so that was pretty long and in-depth. So I think I'll stop there for the story brainstorms this time. But speaking of the possibility of you trying out an idea like this, or any of the ideas on this episode, or any other episode for that matter, since there are, over 882 prompts by now, in case this helps give you that extra little push of inspiration to give it a go, here are some submission call-outs from literary magazines. Liars League are looking for themed stories of 800 to 2,000 words. If you're quick, there's a deadline of the 1st of March for Illusion and Confusion. For a later deadline, there is 3rd of May, and the theme for that one will be Above and Below. They offer payment of £20, but your story will also be read by a professional actor for the inclusion in a podcast and video, and your work will be published as well online. Go to liarsleague.com, then click Submissions for further details on submission guidelines and more details on those themes. That's liarsleague.com. Alternative Milk magazine accept fiction up to 4,000 words, as well as non-fiction, poetry and art. They are just about to reopen for submissions from March 2026 for their 4th issue. Go to altmilkmag.com for more details. That's altmilkmag.com. And finally, The Rumpus publishes fiction up to 5,000 words, as well as comics, essays, poetry, interviews, and stories for the Sunday Scaries section. Sounds intriguing. They're looking for edgy fiction with elements of surprise and emotional depth. They pay $100 for prose and comics and $50 for poetry. For more information, go to therumpus.submittable.com. That's therumpus.submittable.com. Just to note, I have simply come across these opportunities in the wilds of the internet. I don't have any experience of working with these particular lit mags and haven't carried out any of the usual due diligence of my own. Whenever you submit to any magazine or publisher, always do a search on Google to see what other people have said about them online and check their terms and conditions of publishing to be sure these will suit you. And if you do publish an Exquisite Corpse inspired story or poem, I want to know about it. So please get in touch. But if you'd like to share a short piece with other listeners of this show, it could be an early stage draft or a snippet. It doesn't have to be the whole thing. You are, of course, very welcome to get in touch with me at annatizard.com. Go to the Submit tab under the Brainstorium tab and send me up to 250 words based on, I'd say either The Inquisitive Headstone, because I didn't really go that far with that one, or The Mirrored Ifrit. Tell me what you'd make of those. Don't forget to share your social media handle or any website so other listeners can look you up once you've spellbound them with your story on Brainstorium. Until next time, go forth and be inspired. I hope you enjoyed today's Brainstorium. You can find out more about Exquisite Corpse and my series, The Book of Exquisite Corpse, info@annatizard.com. Subscribe to my e-newsletter and you'll get Volume 1 for free. And while you're there, why not submit a few words to the Socks of Destiny on my play page? You may inspire me or inspire yourself to write a unique new story. See you next time.